Thank you very much for that, and I'll start by making an apology, which is often my way, but my partner in crime, Professor Julia Connell, couldn't be here today. Something came up, but I don't know if you know of Julia. She's the Adjunct Professor of Management at Curtin and also Director of Research and Development and Training at UTS. And Julia has been involved with HunterNet for quite a decade and a half, I would say, and I'll come back to her involvement as we go. I also apologise for my voice, which is also on the way out. We'll see how we go. I need more than water.
Pick it open is wine now.
But it's got to be a hunter wine, otherwise I can't accept it. I also acknowledge some of my friends from Newcastle are here. Excuse me. And I'll probably get back to them as we go. So about me, I've done the full circle at HunterNet. I joined as a member nearly 20 years ago, and I did that because I came to Newcastle and got involved in the business there, and I realised I didn't know anyone, and if you don't know anyone in Newcastle, you can't do business. We talk about 2 degrees of separation. So I joined HunterNet as a member, and then I became a director, and then deputy chair, then CEO. Now I'm a member, back where I started, so there's a lesson there, I think. But so I retired as the CEO. It's been good enough to be invited here today to share some of our war stories, if you like. So just a brief outline. It's one thing to start a network, to get established, and that's hard work. And in the case of HunterNet, it took really a few years to get going. But it's another thing to grow a network and to manage that growth. Because I guess like any business organisation, a network is only there for a reason. If time passes and you don't adapt and evolve along with those changes, then you just simply fade away. So the thing about HunterNet, it did evolve and it did grow and it did meet the challenges. And the Hunter, like other regions, has plenty of challenges along the way. And we're talking about regions and perhaps lack of recognition at government level as to what regions are good for and how they figure in the, if you like, in the political equation. And I think that message did get through at the election before last. Regions became important. We talk about the Hunter's Australia's largest regions as such. It does things like provides 80% of the power to New South Wales, a third of Australia's aluminium production, 2% of its wine, but it's all good. There's no Sauv Blanc. We don't grab that, so we don't compete with it in New Zealand. But it's also got a defence industry. It has a rail industry, which is in very serious decline, and it's evolving into medical research. It's got a university with 36,000 people. It's got a TAFE with 60,000. That's nearly 1 in 10, if you like, at TAFE. So it's got the educational background there to support its way forward. So HunterNet is it's a cooperative. It was set up 20 years ago, and it was set up because the world was falling apart in the Hunter. And Tony was head of the trade and investment. Tony came along a bit later, but back then, I was telling someone at lunch, we had 16% unemployment, and that matched perfectly the 16% interest rates that the banks were charging at that time. But beyond that, we had a steel industry that was closing down, which at its peak employed some 40,000 workers. And today it's only 32,000 manufacturing in all of the Hunter. So that's how quickly it's changed. So a bunch of people got together, and it was led by a fellow called Joss Julius, who also makes some very good Hunter wine. And Joss, I think we talked earlier that to get a cluster going, you need someone with passion who drives it. And Joss was certainly that person. Italian migrant, son of Italian. His father came out here and worked here at BHP and sent the money back before he could bring the family out. His father actually bring the POW camp. So Joss gets here, puts himself through a trade, does very well, but then gets into business. And we also learned at a previous session here from TCI that the Italians are great at clusters and networking. And I learned that from Ifor too. We brought Ifor over, or he brought himself over. We just he shared with us at a conference, and he opened up the world to us about international clusters. We in the Hunter are pretty isolated, and insular actually. If we could, we'd rather not do business anywhere else but in the Hunter. Have to come to Sydney, it's a bit of a nuisance. You forget about the Central Coast coming down, it is a market. And that's the situation we were facing 20 years ago in this time of change. So we set it up. So a member-funded, not-for-profit college. And back then we didn't have a model to work from, so we didn't really know what we were doing because we didn't know about these international clusters and networks. So we just kind of went our own way. But it was interesting too because we had fantastic support from the government. I know people here today have been saying, the government doesn't understand clusters. Well, I can tell you, New South Wales Trade Investment, whatever they call back then, Department of State and Regional Development, and one before that. Throughout all this time, they have given us just fantastic support. I think they gave seed money $250,000 to get started. That money's not available these days, you just can't get it. It doesn't exist, so at that time it worked. And we had BHP closing, there was a lot of money from the feds, the federal government. And BHP spent about $1.25 billion to exit Newcastle, which was just a phenomenal sum of money. And if the guys there today, if they said if we're leaving today, we would only have spent $250 million or something. So somehow some of those gods were aligned despite that we had all these problems. So members had to pay to join, and it's not cheap. It's between $3,000 and $6,000, so cheap's relative. You're getting value, it doesn't matter. We used to say it's a couple of Big Macs a day or whatever, but if people are not getting value, they soon leave. And one of the key marks, if you like, or hallmarks of HunterNet was that people tended not to leave. We prided ourselves on membership retention. But that's also meant that we were very careful about bringing people on board, and we made sure they knew what they were coming into, and that there was a process to do that. So together, a couple of hundred members, it's about 214, and the combined turnover now is over $1 billion. That excludes large organisations, which we call patrons, such as the university and so forth. And there again, the university was very important member of all of this. They helped us get set up. So without the university, it would not have happened either. So we talk about, manufacturing engineers. It's an SME organisation. If you want to join HunterNet as your large organisation, you can as a patron. But then we have members and we have patrons and we have service providers. So the key to it was working together, and we've heard this word before, sharing trust. Trust has to be earned, can't be just given. It takes time to get trust, and there has to be honesty amongst members. There's a charter, a code of conduct. At one time, we've only ever had to let one member go, or ask one member to leave. So that's not a bad record, I suspect. We talk about building on core competencies, that is working out what each does best, and then sharing that as much as you can. And we heard earlier about the conflict of sharing your IP. You don't have to share it, you only have to share it if it suits and if it works. There's no obligation whatsoever. But if you join the network, you have to give something. It's got to be a two-way flow. Now, people join after 6 months, say, I'm leaving, why? Well, nothing's happened. So we haven't been doing meetings, you haven't done anything, you haven't collaborated, we got together with everyone. So, but we learned as we went, we had to have systems to manage that as well. The setting up of a group training company was a great service for members. We couldn't get skilled people, if you remember the skills shortages a little while ago. There'll be another one soon, don't worry. But so we set up our own group training company with support from the state government again. And the idea was we trained our own people. In its heyday, BHP trained 400 apprentices. They kept 200 for themselves, and they had 200 out in the marketplace. And that was a tactic of theirs to not have fingers in all pies around the town so they knew what was going on. And to keep small companies, keep everyone going with a little share of the pie, part of their strategy. In fact, when BHP left, we had a vacuum because we didn't know what to do. They did all the smart thinking, then just told everyone, you do this, you do this. They designed everything. If they wanted a machine, they just built it. They built Coyle, which was a gold-plated network for moving coal in and out of the organisation. Never made money. It took years for that to actually become productive because they'd spent so much money on it because they had it. So we trained our own and we shared our apprentices around each other. So if an apprentice was not getting some training in, say, electrical, we made sure they moved to somewhere else and then come back. That became a challenge when things really took off with the coal boom 10, 12 years ago. And that was actually a fantastic time for the hunter, because we couldn't, pushing so much coal out of the ground, just whatever you could get, you could sell. And so people did crazy things and spent a fortune to get it. And when that came to an end, we had this huge cost structure which couldn't fit what was left, so that had to change. We talked about that too. So acquiring skills through training, training programs for members. Once again, money coming from the various government organisations. And we worked out that this is what clusters and networks can really do. They can be a partner to government to help deliver programs that the government know needs to be done, but get others to do it because they can't do it, or they don't know how to do it, or they don't get connected. And with trade and investment, we became a partner with them in their planning, work out what they want, how we could help, and how we could fit in. So I say, if you're thinking about clusters and trying to get government support, it's not just saying the government want money for clusters, it's saying what you can actually do to help them deliver their outcomes or achieve what they're trying to do. Okay, all these activities that we would run for members need to be managed and looked after. And one of the problems I had was when we started this, it was a very personal network. So we knew everyone. I'd go to the factories, all our meetings would be their factories and so forth. But as we got bigger, we really couldn't maintain that kind of association. So we had to bring other people in, and eventually we had about a dozen people. And so my job became, if you like, more strategic to work out where we're going and how we'd go forward. So we have monthly networking meetings. We build up member firms' premises because members like to see other people, what they're doing, what they're making. Interest groups, we have forums for mining, for defence work, for infrastructure, for IT, for innovation. So we break it, if you like, having clusters within clusters to needs. A yearly conference where we assist members come to a full day. We work through a whole strategic plan. We have a friend back here from Newcastle Innovation who would help us with that. So we were always happy to bring outsiders in. We're always happy to share what we did wrong with others, other networks. So we like to communicate to other networks what we're doing, and we learn some from to mistakes and all, because these other people made the mistakes we made. Hopefully they would share their challenge with us too. Lots of formal dinners and joint tendering and mentoring new companies coming in. And once again, Julia Connell worked out she would do a survey every couple of years to work out the marginal utility of membership. As we got bigger, that would start to diminish, so we had to analyse what was happening, and we got funding from Enterprise Connect to have a look at that and bring somebody in to mentor and look after new members so that they're not stuck in the corner. We had to make sure that we embraced them and got them connected. And also with Enterprise Connect, have been a great partner, setting up with access to supply chains for SMEs, training SMEs how to get into the coal supply chain. Because these big companies, you can't find where the front door is, you can't knock on the door and say, look at my catalogue, go away. Or you couldn't find them, they never told you where they were working at. And so, but as a collective group, we could actually do that. And then with Enterprise Connect's input and resources, we're able to train SMEs. We'd have a panel together and we get the mining companies in, and these people would present. They'd say, well, you've got to do this or you've got to do that. Or maybe decide you don't want to be in it at all because it's a particular game. So all this had to be managed and facilitated. So lessons learned, and as I said earlier, we kept a special book of lessons learned, and this was passed on through down the line to all managers, just to make sure that we didn't commit the same sins once again. The trust word comes up again. It's demonstrated through a commitment to the cluster, sharing of information and joint initiatives. And one of the important things we found is that we were actually marketing the region as well as our members. So wherever we went, we had to flagship and showcase the hunter, and we're obviously proud to do that. Everyone always likes talking about the hometown, but we would be encouraged to do this, encourage our members to do this. And we found that we actually became, at one stage, the voice of manufacturing in the region. We didn't seek that, but because manufacturing was unfashionable, we had some governments that way back who just thought it was a dirty place to be. They'd rather read poetry or travel and visit Greek islands and so forth and stay away from manufacturing, and encouraging young people not to go into manufacturing, to go to university and get a degree, which they couldn't get a job. So and the big industry wouldn't talk about it, so we actually found that we were in this space. And but as time went on, people realised the benefits of manufacturing to the region, and that you can have a fantastic job in manufacturing, all of that. Okay, so greater marketing focus, innovation is a key thing. We've just finished the Hunter Innovation Festival, which I chaired. That's as part of the role I used to have in HunterNet. I stood down from my HunterNet role a year ago. I had years notice that I was finished. I only came in to do it for 6 months, and I was there for 12 years, so I figured it was time for somebody else. And I said, Anton, just raise your hand, Anton. Anton's with Newcastle Innovation, and he becomes a great facilitator, and he's actually carried the transition, I guess, from the old regime to the new regime. We've done a great job of that. So, conclusion, the ability of a business to connect effectively with the region. And what we found, Australia has very little, I've just heard all this morning, but people don't understand what clusters are. And once again, when E4 came and shared with us the global view of clusters, we were all taken back. We thought we'd got somewhere, but we realised that there's another huge mountain to climb. So we weren't too sure how we could go forward, but we have decided that we have to be much more active in linking with other networks around the globe. And in China, a case in point, actually has taken place to go forward there. And we had to convince people of the importance of exporting. And in our innovation studies, we found a really high correlation between innovative companies and companies who export. It's obvious when you think about it, we had to show it. Only 2% of SMEs are actually exporting. So that's the next challenge. But we also find it somewhat ironic that when you talk about clusters and geographic developments, that we get our power and our strength from our local geography, but the future lies in the global markets. So that's our next hurdle, if you like, to climb. So I think I'll just leave it at that for a minute, but also there's more here, but this is all in the notes. So I'd like, just up there's a few shots of the Hunter. On the left is the Coyle terminal.
Sean, go back one slide. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just running out of time, but my voice is holding up. That's good. Well, okay, let's go through this. Come up here if you want. The clusters are collaboration, not just locating firms and owners in the same place. We all agree that ideas grow faster in the local community, and the Hunter's a good community for this. We were talking earlier about the challenges of New South Wales, of Sydney, where everyone's dispersed. In the Hunter, everyone is together, and so and there's a strong local identity which helps. I talk about there the role of a cluster facilitator, which was me, and at the bottom, clusters have emerged as an industrial organisation form that is recognised as having superior abilities when compared to single firms that operate in isolation. I guess that's part of our mantra. Ultimately, cluster development fosters national economic development and growth, but our strength and our power. As we say, the power of meeting HunterNet lies locally. And so that's the world's largest coal export terminal, which is, to say, the last decade has been one of investment in infrastructure that has powered the Hunter. That's a hyperbaric chamber developed locally. Then there's the landing barges built by our local companies, and the Joint Strike Fighter, which is coming to Williamtown soon. But there's a $1 billion investment to get the airport up to scratch. So that's a new way forward, and for our local industry. So thank you very much.
I'm a bit of a HunterNet stalker, and I've got so many articles that have been clipped over the years, going back a really long time, from the Sydney Morning Herald to business magazines to Manufacturing Monthly to the Business Review Weekly, to the Australian Financial Review, to the defence pages of the Australian newspaper. There's not too much you haven't been in. And I think that's a real testament to the success of this cluster. And I think it was really important as John took us through the elements. And I just want to reinforce a couple of things. The power of many, the power of trust, and what you also spoke about was the power of reciprocity. And successful clusters, their members give as much as they take. And successful clusters also create leaders within the cluster. And I know that wherever it's been around Australia, there's someone from HunterNet who's been championing your cause. And that's a fantastic credit to your organisation. And the other bit here, picking up on what Professor Graham Sheether said before lunch, was the absolute importance of Newcastle University and the role of Professor Roy Green, who was then Director of the Employment Centre, I should say, in terms of helping to do some of that early research and to help develop some of those early methodologies. So you can see when there's good structure within the organisation and then when it links really well to a university. So it was great to get freshened up on the great work. So please, if you need a good case study, go to the HunterNet and please chase John up after the session. The next person I'd like to introduce is Dr. Phillip Walls from I3 Net in Wollongong. He's the Director of Networking Operations, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he's learned about collaboration in clusters. So please, give Phillip a warm welcome.
Well, thanks everybody. Yes, quite an impressive title I have. I think General Dog's probably the better one. Now, I3Net is based in Wollongong. I3Net stands for the Illawarra Innovative Industry Network, a bit of a mouthful, hence I3Net. Wollongong's very well situated between Sydney and Canberra. Today I'm going to use I3Net, their involvement in the cluster in the Wollongong area as an example of collaboration between the different components. Now, I3Net's, as I say, located in Wollongong, and we actively seek opportunities outside the region, either in New South Wales, state and over in WA, for example. We're also looking, hopefully, in the not too distant future, to collaborate more with organisations overseas and try and get business into the area from the overseas market. Now, similar to Newcastle, we have a port as well, Port Kembla, which is undergoing an expansion at the moment. That's attracted businesses to the Wollongong area, and we're hoping that will continue on into the future. A lot of that's dependent on some infrastructure being put in place, especially train systems. And it would be great with a new airport being built up at Badgerys Creek as well, will assist. Now the other thing we have, Wollongong, we like to think of as the city of innovation. The University of Wollongong has built an innovation campus away from the main campus, which is linked, but closer to the beach. Very nice location. Some beautiful buildings there, and there's a lot of very interesting and innovative work going on at the university, and I3Net is certainly tied in significantly with what the university is doing there. Looking at I3Net, Our members are traditionally involved in mechanical and electrical engineering, industrial service providers and suppliers of industrial products. We've got about 80 members and sponsors, so we're quite a small network. And we're involved, as I mentioned, on the left there with innovation and training with the university and TAFE. Business support through financial institutions, the legal, accounting, media and business supplies, and of course links through various levels of government at council, state and federal level. Now our main aim really is collaboration, to create opportunities for those in the network to engage for the ultimate benefit of the region. Growth in prosperity of the region, bringing work in, growing businesses is really what we're about. So we focus a lot of our attention on attracting work into the region. i3net itself is the board has 8 members and an executive officer. We're just in the process of changing EO at the moment. We have a new person on board. They'll actually be starting in a few weeks' time. i3net's a paid membership organisation similar to HunterNet. And so again, our members too expect a return on their investment. So what we're really aimed at is facilitating companies to come into the area that normally it would be very difficult for the individual members to contact and develop projects with. We've had a high growth rate in membership, but in these financial times we're looking at sustaining that membership. It's a lot better obviously to keep members rather than to try and source new ones. And the word cluster is something I've had had to do a bit of research on, to be honest, before coming to this event. i3net initially I thought was the cluster, but really it's part of the cluster. The government bodies, the universities and training organisations and the various business sectors, as well as the members, all make up that cluster. I think that's probably why some levels of Sydney government, have issues in understanding exactly what clusters are. Now, Rod Brown mentioned that 50% of members of clusters or businesses are not naturally collaborative. I think that's one of the big issues for us, is how to get our members collaborating together on projects. There are a number of instances of collaboration with members of i3net on projects, both within the region and outside. But I think that collaboration could be supported a lot more, and we really need to work in that area. There was a quote that I found in one particular paper from the Toronto Board of Trade, which says it's crucial for cities to nurture their industry clusters, that are concentrations of businesses that collaborate, compete and feed off each other. I think that's one of the big issues, is this co-opetition issue, where business collaborate in some projects and compete in others, and how to get a head around that. And really, we don't have the staff to try and push that too far. But who should be leading that is the question that I suppose I Looking at business-to-business collaboration, within i3Net, again similar to HunterNet, we hold regular networking events which are very well attended. We normally have on average over 60% of our members attending those events. At these events we normally invite in people from out of region to present projects that they're involved in that our members may be able to get a piece of. And members have the opportunity to engage at those meetings with these invitees, but also with each other as well. And that's one of the big aims of i3Net, is just to get people talking. And how best to promote these. We arrange networking events. And I'd be keen to hear from the audience about possible ways of how to promote collaboration between different members. Picture of the horse, leading the horse to drink there. We can only go so far. It really does have to come down to certain personalities within companies. Some people will network well, will get on the front foot, but others need to be assisted. And we do try to do that, but appreciative of hearing other ways that can be done. So we aim at bringing in projects where we can have multiple member involvement. We try and identify and leverage our collective assets, and this capability mapping that's been mentioned a few times today is really essential for that. We have a job within our own network of identifying exactly what the capabilities are of our particular members and how they all mesh together. Sharing information is a big part of the network's role, and also get a collective sense of what's happening in the marketplace. I certainly have gained from being in the network. I only joined a couple of years ago, and certainly it's really opened my eyes to what's around in the Illawarra. So it does produce a very fertile place for information exchange. Collaboration with research and development organisations. As I say, we're blessed with a fantastic university just down the road, in the Innovation Campus, which is doing some great things with additive manufacturing and biomaterials. The Wollongong area, the largest growth there is in the medical field and also tourism. So certainly aligning some of our more traditional industries that have relied on their involvement with BlueScope steel to those new industries is really essential. The universities can help with product and idea development, and they also have an innovation incubator there and a business accelerator program which it's just moved into some new facilities at the moment, and they're in the process of attracting new businesses to set up there. So that's a big plus for the region. Collaboration with training organisations, as I mentioned, we have TAFE there, as well as the university, and working with those training organisations to develop courses that train people in the exact skills that companies want is an essential part of what we try and provide our members. And that's obviously a win-win situation with the training organisation. And the companies obviously benefit from having highly skilled staff. Support from funding agencies. Obviously, i3net started similar to HunterNet with the local RDA being involved. I think it's been running for about 8 years now. Information on government grants, tax information and assistance programs, public sector. We have information sessions and tie-in with those government bodies, and we really appreciate their assistance. And then in the private sector, getting information on angel and venture capital raising, accounting, etc. is all part of what our members can benefit from. We try and provide members with up-to-date information on the ever-changing regulatory landscape as well. We recently commissioned a Petition study that was carried out by the University of Wollongong in their business school. They only looked at 8 companies, unfortunately, but the fact that our members do collaborate sometimes, but also and cooperate is an essential part of things that i3net do. But these companies have, the study has basically shown that there are 3 major co-opetition strategies that have been identified in the network, most of which are in the independence bracket, unfortunately. These are most highly specialised small firms looking after their own business and compete with each other. As I say, we're trying to break that down and trying to get the smaller firms to work with some of the larger firms. The other thing they identified was buyer dominance, which was illustrated by subcontracting type arrangements, and that's been growing within the network, I'm glad to say. But they found that there's little evidence of information sharing or longer term synergy. So I think that's changing now. And the last one was interdependence. Some of the companies within the Illawarra work together for a considerable number of years. Others are new on the scene. Some companies traditionally don't speak to each other, and others are very open. So it's all a matter of trying to break down barriers. So i3net's really a collaboration facilitator within the Illawarra. It's a meeting place. The events we hold and the workshops that we have are for educating and allowing members to talk with one another. We promote strengthening the existing relationships between members and trying to generate these new collaborative linkages, which obviously running into the future are going to be much more productive for the network. We're continuing to work towards providing a better platform for collaboration between members, but again, we're in a learning phase and would appreciate assistance. We promote collaboration between small and larger member companies for joint bids on interstate and hopefully soon on more international projects. But we still have a fair way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. What a fantastic presentation. Thank you. Yeah, great. We'll be taking questions at the end in the panel session. And I thought how interesting, and especially in these cities that have been dominated by big industries such as steel, are now moving into medical, innovation, tech, and also tourism, and the gutsy effort now to start, working more closely with universities, the research institutions, and the trainers. And what I found really terrific was also saying, well, how are companies doing business, and trying to work out, well, are they in sort of, what did you call them, interdependence relationships, buyer dominance or interdependence, and that's really important information that cluster managers need to know so they can work more effectively with their member company. So, well done. It now gives me really great pleasure to introduce Craig Hill. He's the Executive Director of the Australian Sports Technologies Network. Had the pleasure of sitting down with Craig over dinner last night, and I'm really excited about this presentation. This is going to be all about smart tech, smart materials, smart people. So get ready for the sports of the future and the sorts of industries we are going to be exporting all over the world in the not too distant future. Please give Craig a very warm welcome.
Thank you for that nice introduction, Roden, and I appreciate, Richard, you giving us the opportunity to present today and contribute to your agenda. Before I start, just a very brief background on the ASTN. We're very young in our life. We're less than 2 years old. Established May 2012. I think really understanding the opportunity that we have here in developing an industry, we were successful in a bid through the Industry Innovations Program back in August of last year. So really within a 13 or 14 month period, we were able to aggregate key elements of the industry and get them to principally agree to some cash and in-kind contributions of 5 or 6 million to match a government precincts program. As a few of you mentioned earlier today, we're obviously uncertain as to the future of the industry precincts program and where we're going to push forward with that. But I think within a 14-month period, it really gave people and put us on a pedestal as to what we could achieve through developing a globally competitive sports technology industry out of Australia. And I think before I progress, there's been a lot of discussion about what's an industry cluster today, and we're essentially an industry-led national collaborative network. We have members, 150 members from all over Australia. We do have a focal point being Geelong, and that was where the seeds of development of the ASTN started. And we do have a number of programs that are really increasing the value proposition of sports technology businesses to be located in Geelong. But essentially, we have a focus on addressing the industry need to develop the industry nationally. And we're really only going to achieve critical mass and world competitiveness if we leverage off the country's capability in this space. And Australia being a test bed for innovation to take globally. Firstly, and I think Tony, you raised the question to me last night, what's sports tech? Well, it sounds quite niche, but it's actually quite broad in its application. It's everything from apparel, footwear, protective wear, equipment, wearable devices, and then we move into the digital world with sports analytics, data, video, online apps, and even medical and nutrition applications. So really, to put in pictures, this is the sort of stuff we're looking at, and these are examples of some of our members' products that are currently available in the marketplace, whether it be in apparel, protective wear, boots, medical devices, carbon fibre, etc. Again, we're even looking at stadium design. We've got an international, world-recognised stadium designer here in Brisbane. Surfaces is a major sort of procurement line for sport. And going back into the sport, data is king in pretty much every industry now, but particularly in sport. And although the product end of sport is highly globalised by some of the big brands, really the smart part of the industry is in the data, and Australia is in the top 3 leaders globally in sports analytics. Again, really what the ASTN has done is aggregate technology capability. So we sort of look at the 4 quadrants there. We're looking at some ICT capabilities, mobile, business analytics, virtual reality, sensors, on the right-hand quadrant, advanced materials, and bottom right-hand quadrant, manufacturing and design, are key elements of some of the capabilities of the organisations that are part of our network. And then you move over to the medical and health and biotech space. So it's really, again, really a broad application, but we're seeing sport is the procurer to the market, and we're really, I think, as Zoran mentioned earlier, we're an application into market. Really looking at the innovation ecosystem, and this is what we see as really the key drivers of what we're doing here. We've got all vested parties that have an interest in developing the sport itself around the table at the ASTN, and we did that within a 14-month period. So we have everyone from this national sporting organisations, so there's 70 national sporting organisations in Australia. We have this, a relationship directly with the Australian Sports Commission and the Australian Institute of Sport. We have about 13 or 14 universities on as members. We have the Australian Sporting Goods Association sits on our board representing the retailers and distributors of sports equipment throughout Australia. We have startups, SMEs involved, and we also have a network of investors and advisors providing really advice, particularly to the startup community where they don't have those leverages into the commercialisation pathway. So that's really key. That diagram there is sort of key to the development of our system and is the driver of it. So really what was the opportunity that we saw here, and really what we're trying to do is capitalise on our global reputation in sport to develop and promote and introduce sports technologies in the industry. So I think we all appreciate we've probably batted well above our weight in sport for a good 30 or 40 years globally. However, you can barely count on two hands Australian global sports brands, and we want to change that, and I think we certainly believe we've got capability to do that. Looking at the market globally, the sports consumer market is $250 billion, so it's a huge market. Adding sports media rights and licences and property rights of the brands globally, and that's entertainment rights and franchise rights of sporting clubs, you add another $250 billion plus to it. Now, all of these organisations, whether they're in consumer product or in brand ownership, technology is a key part of their engagement with consumers moving forward. Whether it's you as a fan sitting in front of the TV watching a game of football, or whether you're out there going for a run, technology is a key part of their procurement. Globally, there's more and more participants than ever participating in some way or another in sport. Interesting characters there. And technology and innovation is the keys to winning. So that the elite end of the market is willing and able to invest in sports technologies. We had John Bertram speak at he was our keynote at our first conference back in 2012. You just have to look at the yachting industry. His budget back in 1983 for Australia too was about $2 million. The winning team last year was $100 million. So you're talking about a 50 times investment over 25 years or so. Yet interestingly, we look at what we export in Australia in regards to sport, and 40% of the market is horses and recreational boats. So where's the rest of it? And that's really the opportunity and the drive that we see moving forward. 300 million export, barely 0.1% of the global market or market demand for sport, and we import about $2 billion of about a $10 billion spend in sport annually. So really the opportunity, globally regarded sporting reputation, very, very well regarded sports science, research, application of technology at the elite level of sport in Australia. However, our opportunity really was that we needed to increase commercialisation of sports technology beyond that elite market. So we've invested a hell of a lot of money in elite sport, but there hasn't actually been a lot of pull-through of that capability and expertise into developing consumer products and services where the real money is. We really saw some opportunities to better collaborate within the sports ecosystem. That's from everyone from the national sporting organisations through research and the SMEs. Help sport innovate. A really key point and And in regards to timing of our development of the ASTN, pretty much as soon as the ASTN was established, the Australian Sports Commission released a Winning Edge strategy which focused on innovation, financial sustainability and corporate governance being the three key issues to address in sport over the next 10 years. So when we arrived as an industry-led network, we had some real strong direct engagement into the Sports Commission. And then, like many industries, particularly on the technology end and startup end, bringing commercial expertise and capital to the market is absolutely integral to the success moving forward. So we sort of really, 4 key points on the landscape. We saw there's lots of innovation and lots of invention and innovation happening both within research and private. We identified very early on there's a real need to engage with the procurement or the value chain of the sports industry. So getting the Australian Sporting Goods Association on our board was particularly important. There's a real challenge, particularly with research, really knowing where some of their technology applications can go. So really converting technology capability with researchers into real product for consumer application, and how to innovate, what to innovate, and we're providing some leadership in that. So essentially our role as the ASTN is to provide leadership in commercialisation of sports technologies and promote the development of sports technology industry. That includes collaboration, brokering relationships between our members, educating our members, whether they be startups or existing businesses or researchers or national sporting organisations, on how to innovate, how to bring product to market, building programs or targeted suite of programs to address the failures in the market for the industry to develop. And fourthly, providing stronger commercialisation pathways for those young innovators out there to link to capital, link to a sport and link to a market, to test their product, the whole lean startup methodology, pivot and go back into the market again with a product that we can take globally. But in the end, what we're trying to do is get products to consumer markets. That $500 billion consumer market in sport. It's getting us to the weekend warriors, the semi-professionals, the leisure markets. So just very briefly, some of the key activities, really 6 or 7 key activities that we've undertaken since we established in May 2012. We had an industry study undertaken by Professor Danny Sampson from the University of Melbourne School of Management, that helped justify our really the opportunity that we saw in this sector globally, and it reinforced some of the issues that the sector had in growing and highlighted some of the things that we needed to do. We've had 2 annual conferences, 200 plus people at each conference. We had 20 panellists last year, experts from sports manufacturing, sports digital, sports retailing, venture capital markets. So really bringing that whole ecosystem together to really knowledge share and encourage collaboration. So Kate Lundy, who was Minister for Sport in the previous government, was a massive champion of ours. John Wiley, who's the current chair of the Sports Commission, was a really key facilitation point into the sport. Lisa Camplin, massive advocate of ours, and also John Bertrand, for example, was one of our keynotes. The guy in the middle is Erez Morag. He was our international keynote from last year. He was the head of innovation and research at Nike in Oregon for 13 years. And really gave us some great insights on what it takes to innovate and successfully commercialise product in the sports space, both from a product procurement angle but also from a digital angle. And he was working with the likes of Rooney and Ronaldo to develop the next generation football boot. So this is the sort of, I suppose this is the thought leadership that we want to start to bring to the table in this sector. We have innovation and entrepreneurship bootcamps. So those startups, the national sporting organisations, the researchers to Now, what do we need to do to bring new product and service to the sports and into market? So we had 45 at our first Bootcamp. We had 90 last year, focusing on that space. Investment pitching competitions and education. So really encouraging and fostering the new sports innovations, whether they're in digital innovations or whether they're in manufacturing and product innovations. That provides a platform for new innovations and to educate those guys on how to put a pitch together to a panel. We've had about 50 innovations go through that in the last 2 years. International Sports Technology Journal, so more from the academic perspective, we had about 15 papers put through the International Sports Technology Journal within 4 months of our establishment back in 2012. Sports Technology is the International Journal on Sports Technology. They launched a special edition just for our launch of our conference back in 2012. Exhibition opportunities for our members, really, really important. So I've got here, we hosted a special sports technology hub at the Sports Commission's annual conference last year. We've got here Kate Lundy, Stephen Conroy and Michael Johnson. The guy at the front there is Tim Connolly, who's a high performance tennis coach. One of our members developed a tennis coaching app for Tennis Australia. So showcasing and giving the opportunities for our members to showcase technology. Some other activities, we've got a 12-month mentoring and advisory program with 12 selected sports manufacturing businesses in Victoria, focused on planning, sports innovation and export. We're just about to launch an accelerator program. So a lot of accelerator programs are popping up all over Australia at the moment. It's really to fast track young innovators if they've got a really high potential commercial idea. But we're really looking to put about 20 sports tech startups through that program over a 2-year period, back-ending a fund into that. So we're just about to go to market with an investment memorandum, hopefully to raise $2 million by the end of the year, which we can back-end into the Accelerator program. That program is actually focused in Geelong, so it's one of the value propositions that we have for sports tech businesses to come to Geelong and grow their businesses out of that region. It is at the moment we're doing a non-investment round, so it's really an investment-ready program to get these guys up and going and raising capital within a 6-month period. As I mentioned before, 2-year agreement with the Australian Sports Commission sees every national sporting organisation from the AFL to bocce and table tennis being the right to be a member. We're running some digital bootcamp workshops with them. We're meeting with all the sports to really understand what their technology needs are moving forward, whether that be in high performance or game development or participation or even commercial operations. So really, it's really important from our perspective to understand the demand drivers in the market. So this is a little bit complex, this one, but I think it's sort of showing 3 stages of our development. And again, we're very young, we're scratching the surface on what's going on out there in the marketplace. There's even, we're dealing with health organisations, medical organisations, defence organisations that have applications into sport. But essentially we see stage 1, we have legitimately established an innovation ecosystem, whether that be physical or virtual. We're really at the stage now as to supporting a quality portfolio of sports technology opportunities that we see can be globally recognised brands. So again, going back to this, Australia's a great testbed for sports innovation. However, the real opportunities are in the global markets, that being the West Coast of the US and into Europe in particular. So supporting that quality portfolio is really, the Head Start Accelerator, for example, the mentoring programs, the pitching competitions and the education that the innovators get through, that's really important. And then the third stage, which we're hoping to have more direct impact by the end of the year, is really to have an export program that we can take 10 to 15 highly regarded, high growth sports tech businesses into the West Coast of the US, take them through a UCLA or UC Berkeley program, expose them to some of the key distributors globally as well. So just very, very briefly going back to the precinct, these are sort of the names that we were able to. Essentially, my chairman and myself picked up the phone over a 2-week period and had principal agreement from 25 organisations, whether they be in research, private sector or the sport itself to contribute to our precinct bid. And I think we'll be obviously revisiting this over the coming months. But these are the type of organisations that we were able to bring to the table. And the fact, I think as Zoran mentioned earlier, developing a formal relationship with Meta in sports manufacturing and the sports hub is a critical path for us moving forward. But as I said, obviously it's abolished and re-engaging with the coalition is a key priority moving forward over the coming months. Priorities as a national collaborative network moving forward, really to secure support, federal, state and local around this opportunity. Sustainability, I think as you'd appreciate, most infant clusters, membership and the drive of the industry itself is critical. So we do rely on membership fees, start from sort of $350 up to about $2,000 for the larger organisations. Establishing the sports tech fund we see as a priority as well, and an export program. So they're the sort of the 5 key areas that we're focusing on in the year ahead. Sort of before I finish, I'll just briefly mention some of the keys to success so far and also the challenges. It was industry-led. I think the government and the Sports Commission had sort of toyed with the idea of establishing some sort of commercialisation arm probably over the last 10 years, but the fact that this was an industry-led initiative was really important. And developing a suite of programs that actually address the real needs of the industry is important. I think, as Rode mentioned earlier, that the trust and willingness to collaborate is particularly important. And I think people, the innovative thinkers in the industry realise that there's this massive convergence between product and digital at the moment, and there's all sorts of opportunities that are happening from not only sport itself, but in the health sector, the medical sector, the defence sector, that has applications in the sport. Having champions and drivers, and I'll just mention 4 here in their own right. Kate Lundy was a massive advocate of ours initially. Sort of within probably 26 days of her receiving our initial opportunity assessment around developing this up, she provided us with $200,000 of funding to kick off the network. John Wiley, as I mentioned before, from the Sports Commission, and certainly played a role. James Dimitri, who's Andrew's brother. James himself is my chairman. He's been involved in sports management for about 25 years himself. So having that industry figurehead knocking down a few doors was really important. And I should also acknowledge Mark Kelly from Enterprise Connect Interview Region Centre in Geelong. Without Mark, this thing would never have happened. In the start, he brought, I was sort of one angle driving this, but there was 4 other angles driving it at the same time. And Mark brought all of us together, helped facilitate a workshop with Jerry Ingle from Berkeley, who I had out at the time back in October 2011. Out of that, we saw an opportunity to develop a network, and Mark has played an ongoing role in facilitating contacts into the industry, a bit of funding as well, but a massive bonus for us along the way. Timing, I think timing's everything. I think people talk about speed to market before. Timing is everything in what we've done. We just happened to launch when the Sports Commission were developing a winning edge strategy. James, my chairman, knows Kate Lundy very well. I think sport was seeing that they've got to innovate, this whole technology convergence issue. So our timing was sort of perfect back in April 2012. And as I said before, influencers and mentors. I've had Jerry Ingle from Berkeley, he runs the entrepreneurship school at UC Berkeley. I've had Jerry over here 3 or 4 times on some other work issues, but I asked Jerry to facilitate a workshop around this for us back in October 2011. I think he was a little bit sceptical when I discussed the idea with him, but when he saw the 25 guys in the room we had on the day, to really explore this opportunity to grow an industry here in Australia, knowing Australia's background in sport, he said, go for it. So we put a plan together, and sort of 4 months later we got the network up formally. I think you need a little bit of luck as well. And I think that around timing and so forth. Challenges, again, the limited budget and resources. First year we did this off barely 150 grand. Last year, 200 grand. Industry precincts, question mark. We thought we might have been in the gun for a bit of money, but we're sort of back to the drawing board. Meta's been very supportive in what we're doing. As executive director of one of these things, I think Coyle has mentioned this morning the sort of the spiralling sort of agenda and scope that you can get with these sort of things. So trying to push it off to trusted members of your network is really important. And for some reason, I think facilitators are at the end of the food chain in a lot of circumstances as well. Government, I think we do. Particularly spending a bit of time in Silicon Valley the last few weeks, we do have a massive reliance on government funding to support our initiatives. We do need it, particularly when there's been failures in the market, like I think there has in this sports technology industry for a long period of time. We really need to have a world competitive innovation agenda, which I think has been highlighted again by numerous parties today. And funding, I think that whole access to angel investment, early stage venture capital, which is barely existent in Australia anyway, is really important. So it does mean that a lot of our great innovations end up going overseas a lot earlier than what they should be. So we are missing out on jobs. But they're the sort of issues that we come up against, and all of us come up against this when we're developing our clusters. So so thank you for your time, and I appreciate your hope you've got something out of what we've done to date. It's been a really steep learning curve for ourselves. But I'd encourage that if you have any businesses in your regions that are sports, manufacturing, sports mobile, sports wearable device businesses, I'd encourage them to get in contact with me and really, we really see that there's a fantastic opportunity to grow this sector out of Australia, more specifically, with Geelong being an opportunity as well, but great testbed for innovation in sport in Australia. Let's take these products to the world. And so thank you very much. And I hope you enjoy the day.
The next person I'd like... Oh, you are, Tracy. Great. This is one of my favourite people. Tracy is very much easily one of the best cluster practitioners in Australia. So many people have followed in her footsteps, and she's inspired so many. And the other thing, the extraordinary Australian, and what a fantastic ambassador you are for this country. So please give Tracy a very warm welcome, and she's going to talk about the work that she's doing in Advanced Manufacturing Specialisation, the Joint Action Plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you. And my presentation will be fairly short and sharp because we haven't got all that much to tell you yet, but we do have a bit of a story to tell, and so I will do that. But firstly, I too was very enthused to hear Craig's presentation just then. It just makes so much sense. We're a sporting nation. Why haven't we exploited what we had before? And it's wonderful to see how this is going ahead and the process being adopted, and it looks like it has every chance of success, and I wish you well. But I also have to admit, because yes, I'm a long-term regional economic developer and cluster practitioner. I've been doing this job from a very long time. I started in South Australia, and I recall the very first cluster meeting I held was with about 50 food manufacturers in Adelaide, in the Employers Chamber of Commerce. Upon the announcement of the Olympics in Sydney, within a week we got everyone together and said, it's 8 years off, what can we do now to make sure we can provide food to the Olympics and further those markets? And that was my birth, if you like, in the cluster realm. But I want to share with you, I recall back in Cairns, where we ran a very successful, I think, cluster program for local economic development for about 15 years. In about 2000 or 2002, we were trying to get some economic development officers and cluster managers funding for them. And we had, I think, 2 for Far North Queensland at the time. And I do remember the announcement that the AFL were funding 3 or 4 AFL development officers to go forth around Far North Queensland and promote AFL to the communities and so on. So I have to admit, I actually walked out of I walked out of the office and I kicked the door. I was so cross that they could get 4 AFL development officers reasons, and we couldn't get a cluster project manager funding. And I suppose, you know, to me that illustrates a bit what we've been fighting in this country. Had we had, in fact, we even said, hey, AFL development officers, when you go out to, you know, Wagga Wagga and here and there, can we go with you and share the expenses of the car, and so we can get out to the communities and talk to them about economic development and cluster development? Yeah, just a little bit of a, you know. So I've got over that now, and I'm so pleased to hear of what's going on in sports now. So, okay, my presentation is slightly different, because you might notice I don't use the C word. Okay, I want to talk to you about a collaborative project of the 7 RDAs in southeast Queensland, and we have here today Russell Mason from Sunshine Coast, Andrew Quain from Moreton Bay, Margaret Blade. Oh, is she not here right at the minute? She must have gone. Oh, there she is. Sorry, Margaret. And John Shepley, the chair of RDA Brisbane, for whom I work. Thank you very much, John, for being such a supportive chair. These RDAs in southeast Queensland got together about 1.5 years back and funded a project themselves to explore what are the opportunities for this greater region of southeast Queensland, not just within our own regions of a small bundle of our LGAs, but for this greater region, which they knew was very much an integrated economy. And they have for many years collaborated across that economy. And through the work that was done in that project, one of the big priorities that came out of it was that it seemed as though manufacturing, and particularly advanced manufacturing, was extremely important to this region. We're the 3rd biggest manufacturing region in Australia, of course, I suppose, but there didn't seem to be anything going on to support its growth and boost its potential. So that's the focus of this, the project and this particular plan that I'm going to talk to you about now. But my angle on all of this, which is slightly different, is, yeah, 1, I'm not talking about clusters, and 2, though, I am talking about a regional approach to regional competitiveness. It's all about the regions. The world is a mosaic of regions trading globally. Okay, and unless we get that focus and that lens on Australian regions trading globally, we're not getting very far, in my view. So I'd like to bring to the table today the fact that we really need to focus on Australian regions. And this is where I think RDAs can have a great role to play. And I know that there are quite a few of you who've come along to this one-day forum, and I'm very appreciative of that, and would like to talk to you later about how we can work more in this space. Okay, so that said, so we've embarked, this consortia of RDAs in southeast Queensland have embarked on this project, the SEQ, Advanced Manufacturing Specialisations Joint Action Plan. And really, it's not rocket science, and it probably doesn't look too exciting. But I think the exciting part about it is that this JAP actually brings together all the players in the region to focus our combined attention on the competitiveness of southeast Queensland and get on the same page. So that we're, yeah, so it started from the project, the consortia project, as I mentioned. Part of that project was to develop a framework for regional development across the 3 levels of government and identify the common priorities and themes. And I think I've mentioned these points to you. And recent announcements have shown us that, yeah, we were actually on the right track. This was the framework we came up with last year. These were the key issues that each RDA in southeast Queensland and the northern New South Wales guys, because they're so much part of our region. I mean, they use our courts and our hospitals and our education system, so, you know, they're very much part of the family, and we certainly didn't exclude them. We have digital capacity, transport and logistics, smart manufacturing specialisations, human capital and regional indicators. And in fact, Jack Archer's here today from the Regional Australia Institute, Jack, there you are up in the corner. I don't know if you know Jack, but if you don't, please make yourself known to Jack because he's doing some fantastic work there on regional competitiveness indicators. Okay, so, and we're working with Jack. So we needed to look at, well, what do we know about manufacturing in Southeast Queensland? We know it's important, but what do we know? I consider myself a pretty good researcher, but I couldn't find any information, to be completely honest with you. And I think Zoran mentioned that this morning, with Meta. There's no data, there's no real good information out there. But what we do know is that Queensland employs about 187,000 people in manufacturing, and most of that's in Southeast Queensland, and it's about 18% of the GSP, of the gross state product. So it's important. And this just gives you a breakdown of, it's coming in number 4 in terms of employment numbers. NIEIR, who I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with, did economic employment forecasts for Southeast Queensland in 2008, and we have just this last week or two refreshed that data with a more of a lens on manufacturing. So within the next 2 weeks we'll have a really good picture of how the region's travelling and what the forecasts are looking like. To give you an idea though, when I first arrived in Southeast Queensland, I did hear people say, oh, what does it matter about manufacturing? It's declining, who cares, rah-rah. Well, where's our money coming from? And as you can see from this table on contribution to exports, manufacturing is where our money is coming from, our biggest export income generating sector by quite a way. So now, I think you've heard enough today on the importance of manufacturing, so I won't worry going through that with you. We have a very visionary economic development branch within the Brisbane City Council, which you may or may not know is Australia's largest LGA, 1.2 or 3 million people. They've definitely identified the need for us to get far more clever in this area and find our niches, be it aerospace or medical technology, and then build the collaborative frameworks around them. So we said, yes, we agree. I've thrown this slide in because it comes from 2004. No doubt people like E4 and others will have seen it. Berholt, I believe, came up with it. But it makes a lot of sense to me, and maybe it will to you too. Because this is, I think, what we're on about in the region. Berholt calls it the local buzz and global pipelines, right? And here's Southeast Queensland. I've done a squiggle, red squiggle. That's Southeast Queensland. What we are going to do, and what we are doing, is identifying all the actors, all the firms involved, and looking from an advanced manufacturing perspective within the region. And what you've got within that region is these shared values, attitudes, and it says interpretive schemes. But basically, as you will know, coming from regions, those of you who do, and that, whether that's city or rural, that communities share certain things in common, certain values, certain sense of place and pride, and they share knowledge. So there's local information flows, gossip, news and buzz, and then finally those global pipelines, and that's what we're focused on with this particular project. Okay, so the Joint Action Plan is a multi-level government and agency undertaking across the region. We have roughly 35 agencies involved at this very point in time. We have not, well, we've only just started to go out to industry with this plan, and I'll explain more on that in a minute. But these are the organisations involved. It's 11. We have 11 LGAs. I don't know why I put 13 there, but anyway, the economic development folks, they're the guys on the ground out there in the LGAs. We have an organisation called the SEQ Council of Mayors. We have the Queensland State Government Departments of State Development, Innovation, Trade and Investment, and the Premier's Department. We have an organisation you may have heard of, QMI Solutions, based in Brisbane, AIG, and the Commonwealth Government Folk and Industry, Innovative Region Centre, John Grace, who's here today, and his staff, Tony Primmer, Austrade, Manufacturing Skills Council, and others. NICTA, SEBA, which is the Spatial Information Business Association, the Chief Scientist's Office, and a number of others, okay? They've all been brought in to this network. Basically, if it's meant that I've gone and spoken to them all, basically, sat down with them, talked to them about the idea of coming together to get on the same page to boost our advanced manufacturers. We did this by starting off with, we've had 2 round tables, we've called them, on advanced manufacturing. I threw this up here just to show you the result of the first round table, which was held last year, where we had all these organisations come around the table to try and work out, well, what is it that South East Queensland is really good at? And I think Christian mentioned it this morning. When we're talking about really good, we mean really good. We mean in the top 5 or top 10 globally in our area of specialisation. Now, this is still to be tested, but we use the combined wisdom of the folk around the table to work out where we were going to find these specialisations, and these are the sectors that we decided we would find these specialisations. And our task from there was to go forth and investigate those specialisations further to really uncover where they were lying. Now, okay, yeah, that'll do for that. We had another round table. You might not be able to read all of that, but that was then a case of saying, well, okay, now we know what we're probably really good at. Mind you, the rest of the world doesn't, because we're not telling anyone about it. You know, when we have uncovered these various, and one example is, did you know that if you're suffering dementia or onset Parkinson's or one of these sort of neuro diseases, you must come to Brisbane, because Brisbane at Hurston Hospital Precinct has the 2nd busiest neuromodulation clinic in the world for treating these diseases. It's called deep brain stimulation. The other busiest spot is in Austin, Texas, or Dallas might be. Anyway, so come to Brisbane if you have any of these problems, okay? But nobody knew that we were doing this. So as we're going along, we're uncovering, these little gems, and every region will have these little gems. But right at the minute, we're not telling the world about it. And we plan to change that and start doing that. Because all these gems are also supported by very clever firms and researchers and organisations and whatnot that support them in being successful. Okay, so we got together for our 2nd round table and said, well, what can we do about what we're discovering in our advanced manufacturing sector? Now, that's a bit hard to read, but I will tell you what we came up with. Hang on, before I do that though, this is just a very simple map of where these specialisations are falling as we're teasing them out. And we're in the middle of doing that right at the moment. Okay, but in food and agribusiness, for example, 50% of the meat, the red meat of Australia is exported out of the Port of Brisbane. Okay, so there must be something in that. And of course, with the growth in the markets in Asia and whatnot, we might be able to work on that and attract more business and clever manufacturers and that sort of thing, and research. So these are the sectors that we're delving into at the moment and teasing out those specialisations. Okay. And with the aim there of identifying, profiling and supporting SEQ's world-class specialisations. We have taken one step to industry within the human bionics area, which includes this neuromodulation area that I talked about. And this was at the RDA Brisbane's Click Digital Expo back in March. We ran what we called a masterclass for what we're calling the human bionics industry. We know that in southeast Queensland we have quite a strong capability in this area. We've got a number of specialisations that are world class. One of them, by the way, is Hear and Say, and the partnership with Cochlear in terms of helping people learn how to, and young children and whatnot, and their families, how to use the cochlear implant and how to do that remotely. So whether you're in a village in India or remote in China, you know, those services and specialisations you can find in Brisbane and South East Queensland. So this is being called the human bionics industry. We ran this session and people came from all around the country actually. We expected it to be for just the region really, but what we found is we had people come up from companies in Sydney and Melbourne to find out what was going on. What are you guys up to up there? So I believe it was the first time that people had come together from the different areas of human bionics, be it bionic eye, bionic brain, ear, spine or whatever, and come together and said, well hang on, we're all working in our silos around this country. What could we be doing better if we came together and collaborated? So we've started this process. So this cluster, if you like, yes, will be regional, but also, of course, has enormous potential nationally. And I think this is something we need to be looking at as we go forward, because there will be some clusters that are naturally just based in the region. There will be some clusters that the benefit will be in collaborating nationally. And this is something that people need to be mindful of. Well, really, I think that's it. That's all I need to share with you today. So thank you very much.